Robbins says that mastering your state is the most important skill in life. And in a sense, I'm inclined to agree with him. So certainly in pursuit of life first, taking control of your state is absolutely key. Not only is achieving what he calls a beautiful state for the majority of your time, not only is that really the end goal in itself, it's also practically very useful if we want to deliver, if we want to be productive and achieve our freedom, if we want to do what we need to do to stay fit and healthy. It obviously very much helps if we're in a good frame of mind in doing so, that we don't submit to the inevitable curveballs and stresses that life throws our way. So not only is the ability to manage one's state arguably one of the most important skills in life, it's also one of the most advanced. It's one of the main differences between an adult and a child, actually, is the ability to see things, to see stresses as just objects in our consciousness and let them go, and also to be proactive in taking control of our state. And in Tony Robbins' own words, that is largely broken down into controlling your physiology, standing up straight, putting some music on, getting pumped, acting it out first and then feeling it, to quote my mum. Also in terms of your language, the kind of language you use, what you anchor yourself to, and also your focus, what you choose to notice. So if we were to look at say the opposite argument here, that we should perhaps just submit to our state, whatever circumstances we happen to be in, and just ride it, almost completely go with the flow. Well, clearly that is not going to be an optimal way to go about life. If we want to put our life first, we want to achieve freedom, health, and happiness, it's also likely to be a highly irresponsible thing to do, because people who do this often have this tendency to perhaps to blame others for everything, because there's this presumption that they're not in control of the way they feel, what meaning they draw from that, and ultimately what they then go and do by way of action following that. So it almost is like a sort of adult-child analogy here, but despite it being such an important skill to be able to control your state, to be able to perform no matter how you're feeling, to be able to feel good in some sense no matter what's going on, I want to shine a light on one of the main pitfalls really in the development of this skill, because this is something that's not highlighted very often, and it's something that's therefore really worthy of attention. This is something that has taken me by surprise in the past, and hopefully if you are also someone who wants to be better in terms of managing your state, you might relate to this, and hopefully it sort of, if not, will help prevent you from falling into this trap on the way. And so we take this to extremes. One, assuming that we have total control of our state, that we're masters of our state. Doesn't matter what it is, we can do something to get ourselves out of it and always be there, always perform consistently without fail. And on the other hand, assuming that we have zero control of our state. Well, both of those come with problems. One obvious, and perhaps one more insidious. Because what happens when you assume you've now got this, you're the master of your own state and your own destiny? Well, what happens when you're not? What happens when something comes along, that initial euphoria of whatever the event was, or whatever the situation was whereby you experience this state and assume that you can now conquer anything? Well, what happens when that fades and then something does inevitably come along? What if it's something really extreme, like the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, those things combined, these are all natural things that happen to us, albeit hopefully rarely in our lives, but we all have to go through trauma of equivalent magnitude to those things. Well, guess what? There's going to be occasions when you can't actually handle what's thrown your way, insofar as you want to put on a brave face, you put on some music, and you know what? You still can't help thinking about whatever that thing is. I want to give you some assurance here that is completely normal, and there's a danger, and when I said insidious, I mean that it's perhaps not obvious at first, but if you assume that you're going forth able to handle anything that comes your way, modelling yourself and other people who, at least in the public eye, only ever seem to be holding shit together, right? Well, guess what? Behind closed doors, you might be finding something quite difficult. And if you assume you need to be like everyone else, if you're sort of modelling yourself on what you see externally in everyone else, then that thing's only going to hit you harder when you were there with your expectation being that, oh, I can handle anything now, only to then realise that actually I'm now struggling, and then the storylines become magnified. Oh, I thought I'd got it now. If that undermine the whole experience? When I feel that way again, will it even mean anything in future? Again, I assure you, it's all completely normal. It's all part of being a human. And likewise, on those situations where, say, you feel like you've really lost it, you can't see the blue sky anymore for all that there's a storm like going off, right? Well, what do you do in those situations? Can you just let something go? Can you just be like, right, overcome it with my mind, okay, see it, whatever, let it go, change my physiology, and focus on something else? You could definitely try all those things. What if you try all those things and you still have these thoughts pop up in your head? You still have this anger, and when you interact, say, with the stimulus, that maybe it's another person, what if you then find yourself saying things that you wouldn't normally say or that you regret, and that perhaps cause harm? And you say it, and you know that's the wrong thing to say, but it just comes out. You're seeing red. What do you do in those situations? I mean, there's no guidance, right? You've been told that, oh, all you got to do is control your state, but okay, I'll tell you what you do. You remove yourself from the situation. You give it time. I think this is very easily explained using a simple weightlifting analogy. This is an analogy I always come back to. I find it so useful. We assume that because the mind is exceptionally complex, that perhaps it's somehow magic, that it's not subject to physical constraints, when actually it is. Let's take something like weightlifting, which is a much simpler pursuit. Lift that weight off the ground, put it down again. Much more simple, but still a physical pursuit, so the principles are the same. These stimuli are like weights, okay? Some of them are really heavy, some of them are really light. Every now and then one might come along that's just too heavy, you just can't lift it. There's a big barbell in front of you, okay? You go up, you try and lift it, okay, great, easy. Over time, you train, you lift bigger and bigger weights, you practice, and then the amount of weight you can lift obviously goes up, you get stronger. And that becomes apparent to everyone around you. They can see you lifting this thing, you look bigger, you look leaner, all good. And then you try and lift a 250 kilogram barbell off the ground. Maybe you've done 200 in the past, and now someone plonks 250 in front of you and goes, like they do in the gym, like, come on, mate, you can lift it. Come on, I believe you, mate. It's all in the mind. Well, you know what? You go and lift it, and you can't bloody lift it, right? It's too flipping heavy. So what are you going to do in that situation? Try and lift it again? No, you're not strong enough. You need to go away. You need to train. Now, that's clear. That's the process of training, getting stronger. There are limits to what we can lift. There are limits to the stimuli we can deal with. Now, imagine a situation where suddenly you try and lift a weight, but you've got a pain in your leg, you've got a pain in your knee, whatever, your hamstrings strained or whatever. Well, you used to be able to lift 200. Now you can barely lift 100 without experiencing some pain. So this is the analogy for when you feel like you're losing control a little bit. What do you do in the circumstances? Well, hopefully the answer to that will also answer the question to what you do when you are involved in some kind of mental trauma. It's the same thing you do with physical trauma. You get away, you rest, you ice it, you heal it, okay? You let it heal, and then you come back. You don't blame yourself for having it. You don't blame your leg. You say, oh, bloody leg, why don't you just get better? No, it's quite an obvious thing. You take it away, you rest it, you allow it to heal, you take some proactive steps, rehabilitation, do the right exercises, see an expert, that kind of thing. The same thing applies to the mind. So how do we navigate this scenario between going with the flow and assuming we have total control of our state all the time? Well, I will refer to a couple of quotations my mum sometimes likes to tell me, still says this today. Her mum once passed this down to her, and that is that if at first you don't feel it, act it, and then you'll start to feel it. It's all about taking control of your state, right? People assume that it's the other way around. They assume that once you feel it, then you'll start to act it. Well, actually, going back to what Tony Robbins said, it's all about physiology. Once you act it, you will genuinely feel it. Motion creates emotion, to quote him again. She also sometimes says another quote, which is that if you've got nothing nice to say nothing at all. And again, imagine you're in that situation, you've undergone some kind of trauma. What do? You take yourself away. It's simple. You just have to learn to recognize when you're in that frame of mind, remove yourself from the situation, shut yourself off if you have to, give yourself time to heal. So hopefully that's given you some kind of guidance on how to navigate these situations. We're all human at the end of the day. Don't assume that your mind's magic, or that you're not anybody, you're different to anyone else in that respect. We all are dealt with the same physical piece of equipment up in our head. It has limits. It's very complicated, but at the end of the day, these are realities. It's all about a process of training. So hopefully it provides you some guidance in that respect, and also just highlights this pitfall so that you can better navigate your own journey towards life first, a stronger mind, and a more resilient, beautiful state. I shall chat to you next time.